I was reading this book yesterday and I found an amazing technique to remember everything that I learned. What was it? I remember the time when I was studying in high school or college. I spent countless nights memorizing mathematical formulas, law articles, historical events, mostly for the sake of getting good grades. But if I had to tell you how much I recall from more than 10 years of studying, I'll say around 3 to 5%. Nowadays, I don't have to study anymore, but I still read books and learn stuff because I want to get better at business, become smarter, and improve in different areas of my life. But still, I struggle with remembering what I've read even a few days ago. So if you're anything like me, what can we do to combat this tendency of forgetting what we read and learn? Hello you all, this is Juan Cruz from Inerize. Welcome to the third class of the reading course, and in this video we'll answer specifically this question. First thing first, before we can dive deep into the techniques and tips, we must begin our journey with memory, the function responsible for, well, remember what we read. According to John Sweller, an Australian psychologist who had spent a big part of his career exploring how we learn, our brain possesses two different kinds of memory systems: short-term and long-term memory. Short-term is where we store our immediate perceptions and thoughts, which usually last only a few seconds. For example, this video you're watching is being stored in your short-term memory. Your current thoughts are too. Then we have long-term memory. Here there's everything that we've learned, from driving a car, how to use our phones, the name and numbers of our friends and family, and much more. The information here can remain for days, weeks, months, or even a lifetime. When we're reading, every sentence we encounter must go through our short-term memory so that we can make sense of what we have in front of us. But the question is, how can we make this knowledge go through our short-term memory and be stored in our long-term? There's a function in our minds called working memory, responsible for manipulating the contents of our short-term memory as well as what we retrieve from our long-term. If you're reading a history book, for example, and for any reason that brought to mind your Aunt Lily's anniversary, everything is being processed in your working memory. As Sweller says, we are conscious of what is in working memory and not conscious of anything else. After a few seconds, your Aunt Lily's anniversary memories will be saved back in your long-term memory, and you'll probably forget forever what you learned about history. To avoid that, the new information should stay in working memory either as long as possible, as strongly as possible, or ideally both. The more you ruminate a memory, idea, or thought, and the more times you bring it back, the stronger it will establish in your long-term memory. Think of a piece of knowledge, if we can call it that way, like a seed. If we continuously water the seed by bringing it back to our working memory, the seed will grow and will begin to take root in our long-term memory till it becomes a tree. And the techniques we're going to explore will help you do exactly this. So let's go. Number 1. Highlighting. I guess most of you already know this, but I couldn't live it out. Highlighting, whether with a physical marker or with your finger in a digital device, will help you remember what you're reading mainly for 3 reasons. It makes you focus on the most important ideas. Deciding what to highlight and what to leave out forces you to engage with the book on a deeper level. And third, when you go back and reread the book, it makes the job way easier and faster. There are studies showing the effectiveness as well as the ineffectiveness of highlighting. I leave sources down below if you're curious, but I personally cannot imagine reading without underlining the most important ideas. This technique is super simple and I cannot recommend it enough. Number 2. Recalling and quizzing. A great way to engage your working memory while reading is to make the habit of recalling and quizzing yourself right after finishing a chapter or an important section. Repeating the process of reading, recalling, and quizzing will help you internalize what you read by forcing your working memory to remember what you're currently learning. I know, it sounds a bit boring. Who wants to stop reading or watching a video to do this? Most of us just want to read the next chapter or press the play next button. But taking a few seconds to remember what you've just learned will help you a long way in your journey. A moderate version of this technique is to, before going to sleep, recall everything that you've learned that day. I've tried it a few times and it's pretty fun. Also, I usually don't have anything better to do in my bed rather than scrolling through social media, so why not give deepening my knowledge a try, right? Number 3. Note-taking. You probably heard about the idea of note-taking. Either while you're reading a book or after you finish it, take some time to take notes and summarize it. Of course, this will help you remember more because you're not just reading, you're writing the book's most important ideas. Also, if you want to revisit what you've learned from the book, you go directly to your notes, which are shorter and usually straighter to the point. Sure, it's time-consuming, but it's also super effective. Nevertheless, taking notes is pretty mechanical and doesn't engage your mind that much. In my experience, adding to my notes my thoughts, opinions, and connecting what I'm reading with other ideas I encountered takes my understanding to the next level. This extra process that I call criticizing and connecting engages more of your mind than just mechanically summarizing a book. And of course, this will help you with the remembering. Number 4. The Feynman technique. The Feynman technique is derived from Richard Feynman's studying and teaching methods. For the ones that don't know him, he was a renowned physicist and won a Nobel Prize for the development of quantum electrodynamics. Apart from being a great physicist, he was also known to be a great teacher and explainer. He used to boil down very complicated scientific concepts into something comprehensible to a primary or high school student. The crux of the Feynman technique is trying to explain to yourself what you're learning or studying. By doing so, you realize the sections that are not very clear and need further reinforcement. The technique's steps are: first, choose what you want to read or learn. Second, explaining it like you're teaching it to a child. Third, identify knowledge gaps. Fourth, repeat. This technique is super powerful and it will help you internalize whatever you want. For a more detailed explanation, you can watch my video about it here. 5. Spaced repetition. There's an interesting concept called the forgetting curve. Wikipedia says, the forgetting curve hypothesizes the decline of memory retention in time. This curve shows how information is lost over time when there's no attempt to retain it. In simple words, if you read something, the more time it passes without you trying to recall it, the more the memory fades. Sounds pretty intuitive, right? You probably remember more of the last book you read than the one you finished 3 years ago. So to combat this natural tendency, educators and psychologists develop a technique called spaced repetition. In simple terms, it consists of periodically reviewing whatever you want to remember. At first, the reviewing days will be closer to each other to reinforce that piece of knowledge into your brain. But as the time goes by and the memory gets stronger, the days spread farther apart from each other. There are quite a few programs that you, through virtual flashcards, can use to automatically apply this technique. Here are some for you to explore: Anki, Brainscape, Sirigo, Course Hero, Duolingo, Linguist, Memrise, and MemoSign. Spaced repetition is very powerful and it works wonders if you're studying for exams. So good luck trying to use it. Number 6 is note refreshing ritual. Piggybacking from the previous technique, the idea in this one is to build a daily, weekly, or even monthly ritual of rereading your notes. I don't know why, but we tend to think that books are a one-time thing. It's like, once I'm finished it, I'm done with it. But in my opinion, it's not the best way to think about them. Books should be seen as life manuals and be read again and again as we grow and face new challenges in our lives. By doing this, you are reinforcing the lessons you've learned from older books and create the possibility of seeing them in a new light. This technique might get a bit complicated with time as the books you've read increase, but you can always choose the ones that are the most relevant for you and for your life at that time. 7. Action-based notes. I think this is one of the most powerful techniques ever invented, especially if you're reading personal development. From experience, I can say that self-help is kind of addictive. It feels very good to finish one book after another and spend hours every week reading about finance, relationships, psychology, and so on. The problem begins when we confuse actual progress and taking action with merely reading about it. We believe that we are growing when in fact we are just reading more. Well, this technique changes everything. The idea here is that each time you finish a book, you write down what you're gonna do differently in your life. If it's a finance book, perhaps you'll start saving more. If it's a spirituality book, you may begin a meditation habit. In other words, be explicit in how the book you've just read will change you and your life. Because if not, most of the knowledge we've learned ends up in nothing. This technique may not help you remember what you've read, but it will do something much more powerful: actual change. So that's it, 7 techniques to remember what you read. Of course, it's important to implement a method that works for you and that helps you consolidate what you've learned. But I think it's also relevant to understand that, even though you cannot remember 100% of the books you've read, they mold you and have an impact on you nevertheless. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "I cannot remember the books I've read any more than the meals I've eaten. Even so, they have made me." And I completely agree. In conclusion, apply the techniques, they are very powerful, but also consider that a book or video will always find a way to change you in some way or another. Thank you very much for watching, don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up, comment down below what you thought of it and let me know your opinion, I'd love to hear it. See you soon.